Hello, lovely people. Back in action, talking about how to pave your own path, what's required, what it looks like, and really what I'm going to be talking to today, to no one's surprise, is going to be failure. So I really just want you to think about, or I'm going to bring in actually how paving your own path is related to time hacking. So if you are just hearing this podcast for the first time, someone sent it with you or shared it with you, and it feels like you are landing in the middle, you are landing in the middle. There is a part one. So I really recommend going to listen to part one and then jumping in here and listening to part two. So last time we spoke about what paving your path means you aren't available for. Today we're speaking about what paving your path means you absolutely must be willing to experience and to do. And it ties in with what we speak about all the time on this podcast and what we teach and the time hacker method. And it really is paving your own path requires you to believe in yourself. And that can just be 1% belief. It does not require you to fully be on board with like, I can do everything, I can do anything, I can do it all. You might be thinking, I might be able to do this. I could do this. I could start. I could try. I have an idea. The second one is making decisions, right? Everything we do requires us to make decisions first. You decided to listen to this podcast. You decided to hopefully subscribe to this podcast. We spoke about this last time. You decided to leave a review on this podcast, hopefully. And the one that we're going to focus on today is a willingness to fail. And I want to share a little bit of a few of my fails. There have been many, because paving your own path really requires you to be willing to fail. There is no blueprint to follow. You are creating the blueprint. You are writing the blueprint. And that blueprint, as I keep saying, it's like my tongue is tying, but that blueprint is created by having a hypothesis, testing that hypothesis, and evaluating the results of that hypothesis. And sometimes the results of that hypothesis that you've tested, the results of the test, I should say, not the results of the hypothesis, the results of the test are going to be, this part didn't work, this part could be better, I wonder if this part wants to be changed in any way. So we want to really welcome that. So I'm going to start actually by going into one really big example where I paved my own path, had a big fail, and then I'm going to share some fun fails at the end and a question for you to leave to take away for yourself. So I think I've shared about this already on the podcast, parts of it, snippets, but bear with me. I spent a lot of my 20s relocating. I lived on 4 continents in my 20s, and when I relocated to be with my now husband, I really, that was like continent number 4 in the decade. And I really missed hanging out with friends at their house. I didn't like the fact that building a new community and new friends meant that I would have to go out to bars or restaurants all the time, be outside the house. Like, what I missed was chilling on the sofa with my friend under a blanket, drinking a cup of tea, talking, just like hanging out in this really informal environment, going up, and helping myself to something in the fridge, like not even needing to dress up. This doesn't surprise you guys, but being really casual. I missed the comfort of having people in my home and having a home that had life in it. I missed being in people's homes. So speaking of paving our own paths, I decided to not only create my own event doing this, which I did do, but also create an entire company where we would facilitate other people hosting these kinds of events around certain themes. It's kind of bonkers. It could kind of be called ridiculous that we did this. I did it with my now husband. He's a hospitality expert. And it's kind of wild because neither of us had worked in a tech startup. And here we were launching our own first one. Neither of us were programmers. There were a lot of things that were like red flags for why this was not going to work out for sure. And in the meantime, this is the big fail that I'm speaking about, and it did fail spectacularly. And in the meantime, we still facilitated 350 plus events within 18 months that we hosted or other people hosted. I'm talking about friendships made, romances made, business partners made, career contacts made. like we facilitated thousands of relationships, and that is definitely something I'm proud of, and something that I didn't let myself be proud of when it failed for a while. But all this to say, it sounds ridiculous what we did, and we produced some ridiculous results, right? We did have some impact, and you heard me share about this in my burnout story episode, where I shared about that breakdown moment where I felt like I was sacrificing everything for a business and a cause that I cared about. But it was taking too much of me. So that's what happened there. The fail happened, and it felt quite public at the time because our whole community was built around it. We knew thousands of people that were coming to our events. We had 50 or 60 hosts. We packed up our life and relocated to Austin. We did it like 2 days after our wedding. We didn't even have a honeymoon. We've still not. So we didn't take any break, any rest. And those of you that follow my work now know how much I learned from this experience. And really just went somewhere where we were just working all the time. If we weren't, in the office, rewriting decks or making meetings to meet with investors, or going through training with the accelerator we were in, we were hosting events, we were speaking to potential hosts, we were supporting them, we were doing the shops for events, we were having the actual events, we were doing the cleanup of the events. It was really, really super intense work, way too much to do, way too often. I think we were having 4 to 5 events a week at that point. It was really intense and really challenging. And I cannot believe that we even lived and did what we did as we did it. All that to say, my partner actually was the one that was like, we are closing this business. I probably would have still kept going, running myself deep into the ground. And at first I was like, maybe I'll do it without him. And then luckily within a day, I was like, no, I cannot do this. But I'm super grateful for him. But then we had to go through the experience of closing the business and letting people in the accelerator program know, and letting our friends and family know, and letting our community that was still hosting events know, of packing up in Austin and moving back in with my parents at 30 years old, when so many of my friends were having kids, getting promotions, having success, maybe even buying their own first home. And I was moving in with my parents. It felt like whoosh, like a big slap in the face, like a big, it was a really uncomfortable time. And it's almost like the higher you climb, the further you fall, or the harder you're willing to fall, the further you're willing to climb, I think is the right way of saying it. Because we did something so radical. We really paved our own path in so many ways, that when it didn't work out, there was obviously a big hole, a big experience of failure. Now, there's so much we learned from that, and I don't think I would be here today, and maybe you wouldn't be here today listening had I not shared that, had I not gone through that. I don't think I would take the risks that I do, take the bold decisions that I take, and really be willing to pave my own path more and more, because I survived that failure. So I do account a lot of my success to that failure. And I really want to encourage you to think about how failure has contributed to success for you. I also want to share some funny fails and the lessons learned from them, just to normalize failure. I will be here normalizing failure forever. I will die on that hill. I want all of you to fail more, because that is how you will succeed more. So I failed my driving test 4 times. It took me the 5th time to pass it. I will say though, that I did the fast track that you can do in the UK. I'm a July baby, so I was going to be late to driving. So I wanted to do it really fast. And my willingness to fail 4 times meant that I did actually get my license really fast. So that's a time hack. I also think from that, I learned to just become a better driver. Like, the willingness to fail and get the feedback and iterate and learn meant that I became a better driver in less time. I also got fired from a job. I don't know if you guys know this, but I left Austin when we closed the business, and I left New York City, which I moved to when I was 25. I left there 18 months later. There's something about the 18 months for me. Luckily, we've passed the 18 months in the time hackers business. But I left there 18 months later. I was fired. It was a really good thing to get fired. It was not a job fit at all. I didn't want to be doing the job. I wasn't good at the job. I was testing something for them. It wasn't working. It was a great move, and it still was terrible. embarrassing, humiliating, felt like a massive failure. But what it taught me was I was responsible for my career, not other people. And it allowed me to actually stop creating safety and being employed by someone else. And this narrative that I hear so often is like, it's safer to be employed by someone else. Well, I know firsthand it's not. And I'm for sure confident that that has allowed me to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams. Or it can allow you to pursue your different career dreams when you are realizing that you are not attached to a single place, for example. My first business that we just spoke about that was a big fail, and moving back home was a big fail. But I had quality time with my parents. And I remember at the time when we were living in Austin, right before we decided to close, there's a comedian, Aziz Ansari, and he said, you see parents once or twice a year, you might see them like 30 more times in your life or 50 more times in your life. I can't remember the exact number, but I knew we were living in Austin, like an 8-9 hour flight from my family, and I would be lucky to see them once a year if we really set up a life there. So the moving in with my parents may have seemed like a massive fail, but it gave me such a gift of quality time with them and building an adult relationship with them. I just essentially spent a decade living all over. So to have that close time with them was really special, and I wouldn't change it for the world, even though it was a fail. It definitely felt like a fail. You guys might not know this, but my first ever one-to-one client requested a refund. So that felt like a fail at the time. But really, it allowed me, speaking about how failure creates future success, it allowed me to understand client fit. It allowed me to communicate, which I do for you guys on the podcast and in my emails and in my social media. It allows me to communicate who this is for, and really get very clear on what we do, why we do it, the kind of tools that we use. And I'm always iterating and improving that. And I'm understanding that time hacking, I think, would benefit everyone, but also, would it benefit everyone? Like, it's not going to be for you if you are like not bothered about work, if you are happy to be led, and don't want to make decisions, don't want to rock the boat, and that's fine if you're all those things. Actually, you probably wouldn't listen to this podcast, because this is definitely, anyway, it's a self-selected podcast, right? There's even a client fit with this podcast. I speak to you. That's why you are listening. You've self-selected into this free content and this support because you are a client fit. And I understand that because of this client that left. You guys might not know this, but when I was pregnant, so it feels like not that long ago, although he's almost 2, when I was pregnant, my business was making a lot of money, but I let my expenses go up and up and up. And I went into the red in my business, and my revenue did slow down. I was put on bed rest. It was a really uncomfortable time. I was a sole income earner in my family. I was pregnant and my business got into the red, and I was spending more than I was making. And I was not doing any kind of money management. And that time meant that I will never experience that again, because I know how to manage money, and I know that that's an important part of having a business, and it's something that I value. And to be honest, it's something I'm skilled in. My background was in finance, so it was kind of like I'd kind of put down my own experience. I had all the skills, I had the toolbox, and now I use it so much more. And even my first business hire, in fact, I'm going to be very honest here, probably my first 4 business hires were not great. I didn't know how to hire. I didn't know how to set expectations. I didn't know how to manage in this way. And it wasn't great. It was not great at all. For me or for them, I'll take ownership of that too. But what's happened since is we've created a process to build a dream team. The team that we have now, our coaches, my director of operations, our assistant, it's such an amazing team. I jumped in on the meeting that my team had this morning that I'm not normally in, and I opened it and they were laughing and smiling, and we were all laughing and smiling, and I just love the team that we have. But I cannot pretend that did not come at the expense of bad hiring practices on my part, bad management practices on my part, not knowing how to manage, all of these things. So all this to just normalize failure. And I know I do this a lot on the podcast, but I wanted to share some personal examples with you so you really understand that failure is part of success for all of us. Failure is part of success for us at Time Hackers still. We had someone do some work for us, one of our clients. We love hiring our time hackers. And they got a little bit of behind the scene of the business, and they joke like, wow, Vicky really does fail. And I do, and I will keep being that voice. There is no place that I want to get to in my business where we don't experience failure, because then we are not going to be experiencing learning and growth. And so that's why I wanted to share this with you. And I really want to leave you with this question. How has a fail you've experienced supported you in creating success? Be specific here. Like, what was the fail? What was the experience of the fail? What did you learn from that? And how did you apply that to create success? Those are the 4 questions you want to ask. And you can do it about any fail, but I would really start with one and go deep rather than doing like 50 and staying surface level. Like, really, like, if you can write a full A4 page or type up a full A4 page on it, yeah, you're going to take all those juicy lessons, and that lesson today, that fail today, creates multiple wins tomorrow. And of course, if you want to fail professionally, enjoy failing, fall in love with failing, be part of a tribe that fails, we actually have a fail challenge happening right now inside Time Hackers. We do these monthly challenges, so everyone's failing all the time right now. It's really fun. I know some of you are like, fun, what? But if you can make failing fun, what would be different? What would you do? How would you show up? What would you achieve? What would become possible for you? If failing felt fun and failing was something you were doing regularly, how would that impact your week? How would that impact your time? How would that impact your evenings? How would that impact all that you can achieve? Really think about that. And if you want to become a professional failure, a professional failure to successor, let's say, failure to succeeder. Anyway, if you want to fail your way to success at a fast pace, then you want to be inside Time Hackers. We will leave the link in the show notes. It's always going to be the best time to join today, the moment you have that desire. And we'll also leave the link to schedule a consult. You can actually speak with someone about your desire and just talk through what you want, what your worries are. So we'll leave the link for that too. And as always, if you've got any questions, you can email the team. Have a wonderful week. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of us sharing about paving my path and the failure that I experienced. I'm bringing it back, of course, to Time Hackers. So that's it from me. I'm celebrating those of you that are saying yes to failing today, that are celebrating your fails today. And even those of you that are saying, yes, I'm going to join Time Hackers today. This is it. This was for me. All right. Bye, loves.